In this interview, I talked with the CEO and co-founder of TrustToken, Raphael Cosman, about their uncollateralized DeFi lending protocol, TrueFi. So far, they've loaned out over $190 million of uncollateralized loans. 90 million of those have already been paid back, and they have 0 defaults. The team has already proven themselves with TrustToken. TrueFi is leading the uncollateralized DeFi loan market, and the yields that you get from either participating and contributing to the liquidity pools or by staking True tokens are high compared to what we normally see in DeFi. So if that sounds interesting to you, make sure to watch the video all the way to the end. This is a sponsored interview, and part of our agreement is $500 in True tokens that went to members of the DeFi Now Explorer Discord who posted questions for me to ask in the interview. So I want to thank TrueFi for that extra bonus, and if you're one of the members who receive it, make sure you also thank them. Now let's get started. Thanks for joining, everybody. I'm Josh Cross from DeFi Now. I've got here Raphael Cosman of TrueFi, also of TrustToken. Thanks for joining me, Raph.
Thanks for having me on, Josh.
I think we'll kind of start it off. You can kind of let us know what is TrueFi, what your goal is there, kind of talk about the True token, and then I've got some questions for my community.
Okay, happy to do that. So let me start with the protocol. And I think the easiest way to describe it is just to see it. So actually, I'll just share my screen for a second. So this is TrueFi. TrueFi is today, I think it's on the leaderboard, something like the 25th largest DeFi protocol in the world by TVL. We're at $285 million in the protocol right now. And TrueFi is aiming to be the protocol for uncollateralized lending. So you can think of it as similar to Compound or Aave, but it doesn't take collateral. And so instead, it actually has to credit score borrowers. Compound and Aave, they can lend to anyone. TrueFi only lends to folks that are really creditworthy. And these are right now primarily institutional funds like Alameda, Block Tower, Invictus, and so on. Folks that manage oftentimes tens or even hundreds of millions of dollars and take loans from the protocol, trade, provide a return, and then pay back money to the protocol with interest. I'd say if anyone's interested in trying out the protocol, because there's no better way to really get familiar with it, you can take, right now it supports 3 different stablecoins, TrueUSD, USDC, and Tether. So anyone can take any amount of those stablecoins, stick it into the lending pool, and then the protocol will start lending that out, and you'll get a return. And right now you can see the total year yields, including farming rewards, on these pools are in the 16 to 20% range. So, and this of course goes up and down as the market changes, but TrueFi farms do tend to be pretty competitive with many of the best protocols in DeFi.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Imagine for people that are creditworthy and they can participate in this, that it's very sought after because you don't have to provide the collateral.
Exactly. That's where we think the market is going to move, where today these over-collateralized protocols have tens of billions in assets, and there's still a very inefficient way of using capital because you have to lock up $1.50 of ether to borrow $1 of stablecoin. And a lot of the biggest borrowers in this space that are very, very creditworthy and have no problem paying back $1 million or even $10 million loan, they don't want to lock up that kind of collateral because they want to be trading that, and using it as working capital for their firm. That's really what our protocol is solving for. And we do think that the uncollateralized market is going to be as large or even larger than the over-collateralized market is today.
Yeah, that would make sense, especially once we get better ways of people checking credit or decentralized identity on the blockchain becomes more widespread.
Exactly. That's right. Those are important pieces of infrastructure that we need for our protocol to get truly decentralized. Right now, we do have every borrower on our platform get voted on. Their address gets approved by the community to actually get whitelisted in the protocol. And you can see here, because this is DeFi, every single loan the protocol has ever made is completely transparent on chain. And you can see we're right now working with many of the best folks in the business. This is something any of our users, any of our lenders can go and inspect 24/7.
Great. Yeah, I'll put a link to this in the description of the video too.
Cool. So what else are you curious about?
Yeah, so can you kind of walk us through the process that they would go through to apply for one of these loans?
Yeah, absolutely. So a new borrower starts by first they have to get approved by the community to be a borrower on the platform. So they'll write a post on the forum saying, here's who we are, this is the kind of trading we do, this is the kinds of loans we want. Community will discuss and take a vote. If they get approved by the community, then their address will be whitelisted. And once their address is whitelisted, then they can actually submit a loan request saying, I want this much money for this many days and so on. Now, we actually have a rate model that has been voted on and approved by the community, which basically says, okay, given a certain utilization level of one of the lending pools, and given other market conditions and the borrower's credit score and so on, what rate are they allowed to borrow at, and how much can they borrow? That's actually right here. So this is a complicated spreadsheet, but I think that's how it works. We have a guy on our team who actually has a banking background, who has developed this and is continuing to improve it over time. And so a borrower with a certain credit score, and who wants to borrow it on a certain term, is ultimately going to get a rate that's set for them. And so, borrowers are taking out loans, 30 days, 60 days later, they pay it back with interest. And then when they repay their loans, that actually then increases their credit score, because one of the biggest factors in that credit score is actually having a history of repayment with the protocol. So oftentimes borrowers can start out with a smaller loan at a higher rate, and then as they build that history of repayment, grow to larger loans and lower rates.
Yeah, I noticed that when I was looking at the list of loans that Alameda Capital, specific, I was looking at theirs, and that a lot of their earlier loans had higher interest rate and they were smaller in size. And now you have this one that's 20 million USDC at 8% for a 30-day loan.
Exactly. Yeah, this is a $20 million loan for only 8%. That's both because of market conditions. The market's down right now, and so interest rates are a bit lower, but also it's because Alameda is one of the strongest borrowers on the platform. You can see here they've got a credit score of 223 out of 255. That's extremely high. So in this protocol, credit scores are 1 byte. They range from 0 to 255. And Alameda has a very, very strong history of repayment. You can see here they've repaid 6 loans for a total of $45 million. And what's interesting is that all of this information, this is all trustless on chain. We're viewing it through our website right now, app.truefi.io. But these repayments, you can see the actual movement of money on the blockchain, that they genuinely repay this uncollateralized loan. And so as we start to build up these credit scores and get more and more repayment history, our credit scores can become more truly decentralized over time, where they're not just relying on some of the off-chain info, like Alameda's assets under management, but are relying more and more on stuff that's truly trustless and is on-chain. And that's where we'd like over time for other protocols to actually start to both contribute data to these credit scores and also consume these credit scores for use in their protocols. So for example, Aave or another lending protocol might ping our smart contract saying, hey, what credit score does this address have? And for Alameda's address, we would say, hey, they have a 223. And then that would say, okay, Aave might be comfortable now lending to them, even if it's still over collateralized. Maybe instead of, other users need to put up 150%, if you have a good credit score, you only have to put up 130 or 120. And that's where we see DeFi moving over time.
So you could see that this credit rating ends up being, more just over time, could be potentially ubiquitous across DeFi, that kind of gets built into that decentralized identity I talked about.
Exactly, that's right. So it's one of the core problems that we're trying to solve, is providing that credit rating for DeFi to be consumed in all kinds of protocols.
And right now, what terms of loans do you offer right now?
30, 60, and 90 day. And loans range from $10,000 up to $20 million.
Do you have any plans to offer longer terms?
We do. We started the protocol out. We just launched the protocol in November of last year. We started it with shorter loans in order to both protect the protocol and also help borrowers to be able to build up more credit history faster, by taking out more loans and doing more repayments. We are planning on expanding these fixed-term loans to longer terms. And actually, we're also going to be adding a line of credit product where borrowers can, within their credit limit, they can actually pull capital from the protocol at any time and pay it back at any time, and they're going to be billed, second for second, however long that line of credit is being utilized. And we think that's both something our borrowers really want, so they can be more flexible with these loans, and then also I think is going to be very good for the protocol because it helps the protocol to manage its liquidity. These fixed-term loans, once the capital's out, the protocol knows it can't get that back until that 90 days is up or whatever it is. But with a line of credit, the rate on that is going to be flexible, similar to if you take a loan from Compound or Aave, and so that means, if utilization of some of the lending pools gets really high and the lending pools have relatively little liquid capital left over, then it's going to increase the rate on those lines of credit, incentivizing all the borrowers to pay them back. And vice versa, if utilization gets low, it'll decrease the rate on the lines of credit, incentivizing borrowers to actually use more of their credit.
So in this case, with the way it is right now, where you have loans, it's not very fluid. It happens, you have little blocks of these borrowing and repayment happening. But when you get lines of credits, it's all just like a nonstop, fluid, dynamic kind of thing.
Exactly. That's right. And it's more complex, but that's absolutely where we think the protocol is going to go. Although we're going to be supporting both, because there will always be borrowers that are going to want to lock in a fixed rate for a fixed term, and they'll probably have to pay a little bit more for that, in order to have that guarantee that that capital is theirs at that rate for a certain amount of time.
Can you talk a little bit about how the governance and voting works?
Yeah, so governance is done right now through Snapshot. Yeah, so here's our snapshot. We've got some active proposals right now. Anyone with just 10,000 TRU can put a proposal up here, and then anyone with TRU in their wallet can vote on it. And we're going to be moving to an on-chain system. Snapshot is kind of it's not actually binding on chain in its current form. We are going to be moving to similar to Compound, something that's truly binding on chain, but this is what we have in the interim until that's ready to be deployed.
And this is also where if people want to vote on whether or not to approve a loan, this is where they do it?
No, approving loans actually happens directly in the app, and that is on chain. So here, if you look on the stake page, this is where you approve loans. So first of all, you can only approve loans if you stake your True on the protocol. And so staking your True on the protocol, what you're doing is you're getting a fraction of all of the interest payments to the protocol. So true stakers actually get 10% of all interest payments. But you're also taking on some of the risk of all the loans the protocol is making. So you can have up to 10% of your stake True liquidated if a loan defaults. And that's per default. So you're taking on real risk, but you're getting real reward. And in addition to the stablecoin rewards that you get for the interest payments, you also get just some extra True that's part of our incentive distribution to help grow the protocol and put True in the hands of our early users. So right now the rewards are quite good for staking, and we do have a full 34% of all circulating TRU is staked on the protocol. And once you stake, then you have the right to vote on individual loans. And the reason for that is that way you have real skin in the game, right? If you approve a bad loan, then your True is going to get liquidated potentially if that borrower defaults. And if you fail to approve loans, then you're going to be missing out on the upside when people make those interest payments and you get your 10%. So that there is some real incentive alignment there. And so here's just an example. You can see there's one loan that's currently being voted on by the True stakers. It's Wintermute, very reputable, legitimate firm. They're looking to borrow 12.7 million USDT, 8.5% APR for 90 days. And so far, there's 4 million TRU voting in favor. So I think this one just got posted by Wintermute quite recently. You can see that most of the loans that have gone out are, oftentimes 10, 20, 30 million TRU has voted on it. So it's still early days for this loan, but I think it's very likely it's going to get approved. And we do have this credit model, which basically says, what the credit limits and what the rates are for each borrower based on their credit score.
So if you're deciding whether or not to approve this, I would assume you kind of go look at the borrower, see their credit score. Would you look at their, the initial information that they put up when they were getting whitelisted?
Yeah, and you can as a true staker, you can take all that information into account. I would say, right now we do have true stakers voting on each individual loan. We are planning on moving away from this model because as our protocol's grown and we've started doing more and more loans, it's gotten, it's not going to scale forever to have them voting on every single loan. It can be a little bit tedious. So what we're moving to is having all the terms of the loan be set by an on-chain model that's basically going to be a smart contract version of this spreadsheet that we've already been using with the community and kind of iterating on and getting comfortable with. And that on-chain model is going to be setting all these terms. It knows the limits based on every borrower's credit score, and it's only going to be changes to that model that true holders are going to have to vote on, as well as, of course, onboarding new borrowers. And we think that's going to be much more scalable. Just new borrowers changes the model, but not every single loan.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. This would be, I can see how that would be tedious over time. You want to get in here every day to make sure you're not missing out on anything.
That's right.
And right now, the borrowers will say, here's what the loan that I want. They choose the APR and the amount and asset and all that stuff.
So yes, currently they apply with what they want, but we have developed this rate model that we've shared with the borrowers, shared with the community, and our team makes sure the borrowers understand what's expected in terms of rates and amounts. And if they're offering a rate that's beneath what our model says the rate should be, then they know that loan is very likely to get rejected. And pretty soon this is going to be more automated on chain. We tend to. It takes a long time to build smart contracts, get them audited, and make sure they're super secure, and then shift them on chain. So we oftentimes will kind of iterate on things, off chain first, make sure that something's working smoothly, and then lock it in the form of a smart contract. And that's what we're doing with this rate model as well. Taking a step back, there's a lot of details in how you do uncollateralized lending. It's not an easy problem, but really where we see this fitting in the bigger picture is there's this whole stack that's emerging of different DeFi protocols that plug into each other and are ultimately doing all the things that a traditional bank usually does. And we're focusing on the uncollateralized lending piece. There are folks that do over-collateralized lending, that do trading, that do every single slice. Our goal is basically to build this one Lego block as well as we can, such that the whole stack can all fit together. So we do expect there's going to be other protocols in the future that are going to be using our uncollateralized lending protocol, that are going to be consuming credit scores from our protocol, and so on. We think it's going to be a core part of the whole stack that's emerging.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a really good strategy to go for. Find one piece of one useful tool of legacy banking that doesn't yet have a DeFi counterpart, and then make it as good as possible so that that's the one that ends up being adopted.
Exactly. That's what we're up to.
So if one of the borrowers doesn't or defaults on a loan, then can you walk through how that process looks?
Yeah, we've actually got an article that we published about that, because that's, of course, one of the biggest questions that our lenders have. So there's basically 3 layers of protection. And let's see if we have a diagram that describes that. Oh, yeah, here's a bit about it. Okay, so basically, the first layer of protection is the staking system. As I mentioned here, we've got right now 116 million TRU staked. So that's a current market value of something like 20-something million dollars. And basically, anytime there's a default, up to 10% of this will be liquidated by the protocol to cover that default. Now, you could certainly have a default that's larger than 10% of this, and TRU price, of course, goes up and down. So this is one layer of protection, but this, of course, is not a guarantee. Second layer that we have is what's called the SAFU fund. So that's a set of funds that has been set aside that is for the sole purpose of protecting lenders. And so if staking is not sufficient to cover any default, the SAFU kicks in and adds a second layer of defense. The third layer beyond the SAFU fund is the actual legal agreement that we have in place with the borrower. So once a default happens, we've got a legally binding contract with every borrower on the protocol, and we can pursue them in court to get that money back. Now, of course, if someone truly blows up, they might not have any assets, and so that collections process, it might turn up something, it might turn up nothing. So none of these are a guarantee, but those are the main layers that we have. And in the future, right now, this the collections process and these legal agreements are somewhat centralized, and that our company actually signs an agreement with every borrower. But what we're going to be moving to in quite short order is the TrueFi DAO entity, which is being set up in Gibraltar. It's essentially a foundation, a nonprofit entity whose sole purpose is going to be to support the TrueFi protocol, and that entity is going to be the counterparty for every loan that the protocol makes. And someday, we hope that a DAO on the blockchain, a protocol itself, could be legally recognized as the counterparty for a loan. We're not there yet, and so we're still going to have this entity that just works on behalf of the protocol and is basically the counterparty for every single one of these agreements. So that's kind of the situation. So there's of course still risk if you're lending with a protocol, but I would say, it's done now. I think $190 million of loans originated, $93 million of loans already repaid, and all of that is without a single default. And folks are getting very, very good rates. So we're at the point now where we certainly could handle a default as long as it's not too large, and our lenders would still be doing quite well for themselves. We're of course trying to make the protocol as safe as we can, so we don't have those defaults, but we do know it's going to happen eventually. You don't have a large lending business without having some defaults, and really we just need to design the protocol to make sure that the rates that lenders are getting far exceeds the rate of defaults, and that that all balances out over time to still be very attractive.
Right. Where do the funds for this SAFU fund come from?
Our company took a big chunk of TRU, and it's something we discussed with the community, and we allocated, I think it was maybe 5 million TRU, something like that. I need to look up the number. That was just set aside. It's sitting in a special wallet, and that's just the SAFU fund. We don't yet have smart contracts built out to automatically handle that the process with the SAFU, but it is something that we're working on. And the funds are already set aside, and completely allocated for this.
Do you have any plans to make it so funds get added to that fund over time to prevent it from potentially draining?
Right. So, we can see the SAFU as potentially a buffer, where in good times it could be slowly growing, and then if there's a default, then it will kick in and cover that loss. And that's something that we're thinking through right now, how to design that, and how does the SAFU and the staking system interact? Should that really be one system? Do we want two separate systems? Do we want to have some sort of tranching on the risks in these pools, like maybe an option for users if you want to go kind of lower risk or higher risk, but of course lower and higher reward? Those are questions that we're actively thinking through right now. And we do have some competitors that are working on some of these same questions. I don't think it's at all obvious what's the best way to do it or how it's going to shake out. And if you or any of your listeners want to come and work with us on this, we are actively hiring. So it's the future of uncollateralized lending is being figured out as we speak. That's what keeps it interesting around here.
Yeah, a lot of what's happening in DeFi is all just kind of testing it out, collaborating. It's kind of the still survival of the fittest. You try it, and what doesn't work gets tossed out, and what does, that's where we are. That's why we get such big opportunities also, because it's still this trial and error phase.
It is, yeah. And I think if the answers were already figured out here on what's the best way to do uncollateralized lending, then on the blockchain, this wouldn't be very interesting, and this wouldn't be a huge opportunity for us, right? What makes it big is that this really is undiscovered territory.
So for people who are interested in applying, where do people go to apply for a job there?
Go to our site, TrustToken.com. You go to our team page. You can see here about us. Got a bit about our team here, and here are some of our open roles. We're posting new roles on a pretty regular basis as our team continues to grow. And I hope some folks that are your listeners who want to get more involved in DeFi come and reach out to us.
Yeah, that's awesome. Since we're talking about the team, let's get into kind of how big is your team so far?
So our team's about 40 people right now, and we're probably going to be scaling that up significantly over the rest of this year, especially growing our engineering team, which right now is about 13 people, but we think is going to be significantly larger in the next couple of months.
Because you guys have been doing TrustToken and TUSD for quite a while before you started TrueFi, right?
That's right. Yeah. So we launched TrueUSD, our USD-backed stablecoin in I think the beginning of 2018, and it's now past it's past $1 billion in market cap. So it's quite large. But while we're still involved with that product, it's no longer our main focus. We're primarily focused on TrueFi. TrueUSD, we actually sold that off to an Asian consortium that approached us last year, and had the resources to be able to grow it to a larger level than we ever could. So we still work with them on that product, but it's not the main focus of our team today.
So you're completely going into TrueFi.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So what would you say? What is your kind of dream of building this to? I guess, yeah, like your dream of what you really would like to see in TrueFi in the long term.
Well, in the short term, I'd like to see TrueFi be a billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar protocol, and I'd like it to be the way that uncollateralized lending happens on the blockchain. I think we've got a good shot at that. We're in the #1 spot right now, and I think we just need to make sure we don't lose it. In the long term, I think that DeFi as a whole is going to be powering a huge chunk of finance. And just like how most people today use the internet on a daily or even hourly basis, but don't necessarily know the internals of how the internet works. How does the TCP/IP protocol work? How does SSL work? And so on. I think we're going to get to the same point with DeFi where, TrueFi will become such a solid building block for uncollateralized lending that people know institutions know that they can pump billions or even tens or hundreds of billions of dollars through it, and they understand exactly how it works. And the same will be true of other protocols for over-collateralized lending and protocols for trading and so on. These will become very, very trusted, very foundational parts of the financial system. And someday, your parents or even your grandparents will be using a financial app or even, going to their bank and making a deposit. And what's happening under the hood is a whole bunch of DeFi transactions to help them earn the best yield, mitigate risk, and so on. But they don't necessarily need to know that, just like how most of us today don't know how our banks are lending our money. I think DeFi is going to ultimately be a lot more solid and a lot more transparent than what's going on today.
Right. I don't even think the banks know how they're loaning out our money anymore.
They might not.
Okay. I wanted to change gears a little bit and go into some questions that I have from the community. So I reached out to my Discord group and I gave them an overview of TrueFi, told them my thoughts, and then I asked them to come back with questions.
Cool.
The first few questions kind of go as far as what would happen in the event of a default. So we talked a little bit about that. Specifically, they have questions about how you would do legal action, from how you would be able to access the jurisdictions to be able to legally pursue entities in different borders.
Good question. I guess I should get my legal team on that question. We do have several attorneys on our team that work on exactly this sort of thing. But these types of lending agreements are very standard and they happen across border all the time. So I think being able to pursue folks in other jurisdiction is pretty standard. But I would mention we do take into account what jurisdiction folks are from when they get approved on the platform and when they get their credit score. So of course, if someone is from a jurisdiction that's really going to be problematic, they may not even be approved as a borrower, or it could significantly impact their credit score.
Do we have any plans? Because I know your mission is to empower people by giving them financial access or access to financial opportunities. Yeah. So how would you see the process of enabling people who are unbanked or who don't have access right now?
Good question. So I think our protocol opens access primarily on the lender side. These firms like Alameda Research, right? They produce an amazing return. I know the folks personally, they're very legit. And if you're a big hedge fund or you're a billionaire, you can go to Alameda and you can say, hey, we'd like to give you a loan or invest with you. Let me give you $10 million. Great. That's fine if you've got that kind of capital, right? But if you are a small fish and you only have $10,000 or $100 to deploy, you're not going to be able to get a response from the likes of Alameda or other top funds. So these are some of the best financial opportunities in the world, and they're oftentimes reserved for big hedge funds, VCs, high net worth individuals. And so what we're doing with DeFi is we're taking these opportunities and we're creating lending pools where we say, look, you can get a great risk-adjusted return on your capital, and you can enter this lending pool with $10 million or $1. It doesn't matter. That's really the power of DeFi. We're not offering loans to individuals right now. It's just too difficult on the collection side and doing credit scoring for that many people. Although we do in the future envision ourselves lending to institutions that loan to individuals. So there are apps like Tala and Branch that are in that kind of business, and I could see them being borrowers on our platform. But our platform, our protocol is very unlikely to ever be able to handle doing collections at scale if you have thousands and thousands of individuals coming in.
And giving an opportunity for apps like that then they can lend out, or even if we're talking about money Legos and DeFi, you could have other lending protocols or something potentially. At least that's what I'm thinking, that could take the capital, borrow it from TrueFi, and then they have other means to vet more and more individuals or something like that.
Exactly. That's right.
I like the idea of it. So the idea is that anybody can access to lend their capital and get pretty decent returns because these institutions are willing to pay higher percentage APY because they don't have to provide collateral. So compared to other lending protocols, as a lender, you could potentially make more in TrueFi than you would in other protocols.
Exactly. And we think this model is going to win because it's fundamentally more capital efficient. So we think over the long term, even as farming rates drop and other things shake out of the market, we think fundamentally uncollateralized lending is going to be able to offer a higher APY than over collateralized lending. And that is likely going to be the case even years from now. So that's why we're making this bet. And in terms of how people can participate, not only can anyone be a lender, but anyone can hold TRU and participate in some of the upside if the protocol does do well. Anyone can actually stake, can vote on loans to get extra staking rewards, and can even participate directly in governance and decide how the protocol moves forward. That's a lot of power that we're putting in individuals, people who are directly using our protocol. And right now, our farms are giving a lot of our early users TRU because we're saying, look, you're here, you're one of the early users helping grow the protocol. We want to put our governance token directly into your hands, and you decide what the future of this protocol is going to be.
So how would you recommend if somebody wants to maybe try this out? What steps can they go to make sure they understand it, and then to pull the trigger and jump in on it?
So if you go to TrueFi.io, TRUEFI.io, we've got a bunch of great resources here. We've got a blog post that's linked to with just a great description of how the whole protocol works. We've got the app itself. There's really no substitute for just trying it out. Put in $10, put in $100, a little play money, and you'll immediately understand the basics of the protocol. And I would say if you are interested in getting involved, join our Discord. Our team is in there. You can chat with us directly and get some stablecoin and put it into some of the farms and start farming TRU. Then you can participate in staking. You can participate in governance. You can decide which borrowers we bring onto the platform. We've also got a forum with very active discussions and very genuinely interesting debates between very smart people about what we should be doing to grow the protocol and make it the best protocol it can be.
Yeah, that's great. And like I said, I'll put links to all this in the description when I upload the video.
That'd be great.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, Raf. I appreciate you coming on the channel.
Thanks for having me on, Josh. It's good talking with you.